bright African good morning to you and welcome to Follow Me to Africa Conversations brought to you by Cliff Not TV in the diaspora. My name is Anqueta Beatrice Achaleke. I am the serial author of the Africa for Smart Kids book series, publisher of Ubuntu Books, founder of Follow Me to Africa, and your delighted host. Follow Me to Africa, our conversation series is that conversation series where we bring you Africans who have journeyed through life. We bring them on to share their life transforming journey, their stories. We take you to places, show you culture, make you meet people. We bring new perspectives, new in depth, and show you another perspective of Africa through the eyes of my guests and the conversations that we have. We air twice a week on Tuesdays and Fridays on at 9 a.m. South Tome time, that's GMT, 10 a.m. Central African time if you're in Nigeria or in the Central African region, and 10 a.m. in the UK, right? It's Central European time, and of course 11 a.m. in South Africa. So you don't want to miss out on this conversation. If you haven't registered on clicknote.com, I invite you to do so right now so that you don't miss out. You don't miss out on any one of our programs. Clicknote TV in the diaspora on clicknote.com is a space where you want to be because that's where we package it all together for you. And before we get into my conversation, before I introduce my guest, I will give you the time to go around on clicknotetv.com and see what you can do right there. And we'll take a quick break. And when we come back, I will take you to South Africa again and introduce you to my guest, who is just a powerhouse. You will realize that once she starts speaking. So before we get into that, let's take a quick break.
In the 21st century's technological advancement, we all seek opportunities to move and network with the emerging space. Introducing Clevenard blog and event posting. Do you think you have some interesting materials, good content, articles, and stories? Then feel free to publish them on Clevenard blog and events page, just as team of our writers are doing presently. By blogging on Clevenard's blogs and events, you benefit from our reach and network. There are a constant stream of people visiting our social platform, and we have figured out just how to distribute our contents. This means you can basically skip the line and get access to a big audience from day one. Furthermore, we can help you get in touch with important people for projects with possibilities of translating your content into other languages and republishing them on Clevenard. This helps preserve and protect your content from getting lost. What's more, you also get to be part of our team with access to our network and lots of exclusives, behind the scenes information. And of course, you get full credit for everything you do, which brings you popularity and make extra income. Sign up now on clevenard.com and start blogging to your advantage. Please see the tutorial video on how to blog or post events on Clevenard blogs and events. For more information, contact info@clevenard.com +34 631 279811. Website www.clevenard.com. Clevenard, your blogs, your identity. In the 21st century,
conversations on clicknotetv.com. I keep making this mistake. You bear with me. So it's Clicknote TV in the diaspora, and you find that on clicknote.com. Right. Let's put it right. And Clicknote TV in the diaspora is today is not a good day for me, but it is. So it is an internet television series created to bring together Africans in the diaspora and in the continent to celebrate and appreciate their achievement. So we are having another Follow Me to Africa conversations. If you're just joining us, make sure that you sign up so you follow up these conversations anytime. Now it's time to take you to South Africa to my guest. And I'm super excited. You must have noticed that. So I keep stuttering when I am excited to have an interesting conversation because she and I will just have this conversation going. So, Madam J, welcome to Follow Me to Africa Conversations. Will you kindly introduce yourself, please?
Thank you very much, Ankweta. You just called me Madam J, which is my city name, my work name. I was born Jamela Mhlongo in Limpopo, which is the northern part of South Africa. Came to Johannesburg many donkey years ago, where through work and travels and whatnot, I began to be called Madam J. But with a name, an endearing name that I embrace. But formally, I am Jamela Mhlongo Robertson, and I'm a mother of two adults in their 30s. So I can't say children anymore. I have to remind myself that I'm a mother of adults. And basically, I am a South African woman who is very, very passionate about her country, who lives to see her country prosper, so to speak. And that is how I define myself in terms of my life, my work. I hope to do something purposeful for my country. That's my identity, basically. Thank you.
Yes, and I know that you put in all your energies into that. And that takes us to, the conversation, the homecoming. You are a homecomer yourself. You were born in South Africa, you left South Africa, you spent time abroad. But some years ago, I think you're the most senior homecomer amongst all of us. You came
Yes.
back home. So tell us a little bit about your journey about living the continent, in the country, in a nutshell, and most specifically, the homecoming part. That's the most interesting part. The homecoming, and when did you know it was time to come back home?
Yes. In life, when you grow up, you sort of like have your bucket list. When I grow up, I want to be this, I want to do this, I want to do that. And you think you have everything planned. But the universe also has a plan for you. And this plan sometimes is the kind of plan where you look back and say, actually, this has turned better than my plan. So while I planned to be something in South Africa, and back then, before I went to the diaspora, I didn't have the concept of the continent. For me, I was living in this bubble, firstly called Limpopo, Zanin, Dan village, where I was born. That was my world. But obviously, as I grew and I came to Joburg in 1980, life happened and I found myself in the UK for a decade, for just over a decade. And obviously, I pursued my education there as I was experiencing this. For me back then was a strange country because at some level, I felt like a fish out of water, if you know what I mean. Here in South Africa, I lived in an environment where you wake up in the morning, you are able to go outside and greet your neighbors in the streets, you greet everyone. You have that culture, and it's part of what we call Ubuntu. But once you come out of this, you go to another environment where it's like when you walk in the streets, it's like everyone is sad. You smile and nod because it's in you to greet everyone you come across. And people are like looking at you like, are you crazy? Who are you? Why are you smiling at me? So it was that kind of experience of feeling like, hey, I'm a fish that's just been taken out of the water. But at the end of the day, obviously, while you have a relationship with the environment around you, you also have a relationship with yourself in terms of your aspirations. And for me, I didn't have the opportunity to get an education when I was still here at home. So that was one of the things that I pursued. And I pursued with an outlook that I will have to come back home. And if I have to contribute anything in this world, I will be able to do it better when I'm here at home, where I know I fit in to a certain extent, because you know the social systems are pretty much linked, whether you're here at home or abroad. As you know, we usually say we now it's a global village we live in. But for me, yes, being in the diaspora was an eye-opening kind of experience, in a sense of realizing that much as we are a global village, there are many nuances in which we differ, in that when you feel displaced where you are, you begin to ask yourself questions. How do I fit into this whole globe where we all reside as human beings? And once I could place myself being outside the continent, but each time I ask myself those questions, I found myself answering them that I fit in back in my continent, back in my country. That's where I can be myself and be able to relate and be able to contribute meaningfully, if you like. And where I am right now, I've never regretted that. I want to mention in relation to not having regretted my decision to come back home, that it wasn't, I don't want to give an impression that it was an easy decision to make. Remember, when we are outside the continent, especially in Europe, you sort of like get influenced by what you see on TV. And one of the things that right now I look back and say it's so unfortunate is the image you see on television about Africa. You see war, you see famine, you see crime, and boy, do they show very scary images of this continent. And when you make a decision, you are, back then I was a young woman with 2 children, and having this picture of the scary continent that I'm deciding to take my children back to, a place back then, South Africa, a place that I did not know well. When I left the country, I did not know well, because we lived in a system where we were separated. As Black people, we knew a different South Africa than white people, for instance. So as I was deciding to come back home, I had to factor in all these things that I was seeing on television. How am I going to cope with my children in this kind of environment? But at the end of the day, I told myself, it is home. I come from there. Whatever it is that is happening there, I'll have to be part of it. If anything needs to be fixed, I'll have to be part of fixing that. After all, they say charity begins at home. So I must be part of the problem and be part of the solution. And on that, I decided to come home with my family, only to find that obviously what you see on TV outside the continent, it's a very, very deceptive picture of who we are here. Because there I was back home feeling perfectly safe and well. Of course, I'm not saying everything was 100% perfect, but from where I was standing until today, I've never regretted it, because even my children got to realize this is the most beautiful place to live in, where people relate, where people are cognizant of each other, and we are not perfect, but we still have that humanity, where you do acknowledge yourself in relation to the people around you, and you do feel that I'm not alone. So that's the spirit that we still promote here at home. And you will never understand it until you put yourself in this place and begin to see the world from a different perspective, not from the European television perspective, so to speak.
You touch on something very powerful there, very key. You are tuning in to Follow Me to Africa Conversations, and I tell you, this is more than just a conversation. We show you our love for the continent because we've turned around and we've seen the continent. We've seen it through different eyes. away from the mainstream television.
Mm,
Sis, when I made the decision to return from Austria to after 20 years out there, one of the ministers who was my very good friend, he was so frightened. He said, like, do you already have an insurance? Do you have a work contract? Do you have where you're going to stay? You're not going to Africa? And I'm like, excuse me, sir, I come from there. I came to your country when I was 25. I come from there, the place where there is no insurance, if you think there is no insurance. And so
yes.
he got his secretary to call the Austrian embassy in South Africa to see what are the collateral relationship that Austria has with South Africa, because I'm coming to South Africa and he wants to make sure. And I'm like, thank you for being so kind, but I'm returning to home. Whatever is there, if I swim in your country, I am going to like be the best swimmer where I'm going. So it's
Mm,
that perspective. And you mentioned it, the perceptions that we get from the media. How do you think that goes a long way to shape the vision that we have, the misconception that we all, Africans and non-Africans, have about the continent that we call home? How do you think that shapes that misconception?
it really shapes it in the most fundamental way because, we may take it for granted that television is television. Which, as people, if you think hard about it, you would feel that I shouldn't be influenced by television. I should be able to think for myself, sift the information that I see on television, find out for myself, do my own research. But that is the ideal. If all of us as people in this planet, we were to be able to say, okay, I see what I see on television, but is that there is that all there it is in this world, and start asking ourselves questions and start being inquisitive, research, just to find out if what we see on television is true. And we do know that a big chunk of what we see in the media is distorted. It's not the reality. But unfortunately, it does shape our thinking. I said in the most fundamental way, because it instills that fear. For instance, when you are in the diaspora, and I've had friends also in the US, in the UK, and from other countries that would say, I'm not going back there. During the, sorry to derail a bit, during the Rwandan genocide era in the 90s, I've had friends who said, actually, one of the publicized statement that was said by a brother from the US was, thank God my ancestors were taken out of there. Thank God I was a slave in America, because I didn't have to see what is happening now in that dark continent. So you see how fundamental that gets to you. So we shouldn't take it for granted that the media, and it's a strategy, a deliberate strategy to brainwash us that this continent is a dark continent. I am actually looking at one of my books here. If you allow me, I will show you the title. I don't know if you can read it. It says Dark Continent, My Black Ass.
Wow.
That's the I don't know if you can read it. Yeah. This book is written by Sihle Khumalo, a guy from the KZN province. It's eye-opening, and I'm speaking the way I'm doing because I read this book. That much as I was scared as I was coming home, and I took that risk, I came home with the perspective that whatever is happening there, I'll be part of the solution, part of the healing, and try to be part of taking this country forward. But when I was here and felt that air of home, that welcoming air of home, and started reading and traveling across my country, because I traveled Europe before I traveled my own continent. I started to see, that thing that although we interpret it differently, the Ubuntu. So whether you are in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, in Tanzania, in Nigeria, there is that air that says I am in Africa. It doesn't say, oh, what is it here? We are different in different, there are little differences, but you feel that sisterly, brotherly, motherly relationship with everyone in the continent. So until you travel, you experience, you see for yourself, you will only see the negative part of this continent, because that's how the media has brainwashed you. And as we were talking earlier, Ankweta, it is by design. It's not an accident. It's not a consequence of anything. By design, from the beginning, to make us feel less of who we are as Africans. And that has worked, I suppose, for the past 600 years or so. But the good thing for me is, like Bob Marley said, you can't fool everyone all the time, and something to that effect. So as a people in this continent, we are beginning to see that. We are beginning to remove the wool that has been put across our eyes for the past 600 years. It took 6 centuries to get us, to brainwash us. And I don't know how much longer it will take to continue, but the good news is that we are pulling the wool off our eyes, and we are beginning to see clearly, and we are beginning to see how powerful we are as a people in this continent.
You said so many things there that warrant kind of deepening. But I'll just pick. Allowed me. I'll pick just a few. Kwame Nkrumah said, "I am an African not because I was born in Africa, but rather because Africa was born in me." And I think that really conveys a message of
Mm.
what it means to be born in Africa and Africa being born in you. And I know and quite a lot of people think that Africa started with enslavement and colonization. When you go beyond, when you begin to go beyond, because you're curious, like you said before, you start to question, why did these people come here to stay for so long? And they're still here even after independence. Why were Africans taken out of the continent? You begin to understand that if we were the lazy people, uneducated people that we are, our ancestors wouldn't have been taken out. And when you do your research, you see that black people built the White House. Most of the castles in Europe were built by the black people, just supervised by the slave owners, people who enslaved us. So you begin to realize from what greatness we come from, and why it was by design made to put that veil on our face so that we don't see back into that past.
Mm.
But thanks to other technology, the history is being unveiled, and some of us are becoming curious and asking questions so that we
Definitely.
begin to understand that plan that was put in place. Now you come
Definitely.
out of and you were educated, born and raised during the time of apartheid in South Africa. Now we said South Africa has been apartheid free, they say, since 1994. They say we have democracy, whatever it is. So you coming from that background and coming out of the pandemic, an unprecedented pandemic, what do you think? What do you think we Africans should be doing differently in order to embrace who we are, but above all, to shape the future that we are heading to for our children?
You know, South Africa, post 1994, we had this notion that we are a rainbow nation, black people are free, the black people are now in government, everything is going to work out the way we envisaged as we struggled against apartheid since 1948. Of course, before 19 and 1994 for us was a dream. I voted while I was still in the UK, and it was such an excitement because I was voting for the first time in my life. like everyone else in South Africa. We were voting for the first time in our lives. But for me, the fact that I was able to vote when I was outside the country, it was even an extended privilege for me. That's what prompted me to say, look, in this new democracy, go home and be part of the development of your country. But as we know today, 28 years later in democracy, in the area of work that I do, which obviously is about transformation in terms of promoting equal human rights, whether it's on the basis of race, gender, disability, age, and so forth, because these are the groups that have previously been disadvantaged in terms of socioeconomic integration. And so here we are 28 years later. And when you look at what is happening in the country, like it is across the world where people have been oppressed, you can see that the cliche is that the rich gets richer, the poor gets poorer. And we are still in that kind of condition. And again, that brainwashing by design still persists, because you have this smoke screen that is trying to have us believe that we have the freedom that we fought for. We have socio-economic development. We're setting goals every 15 years, like your NDP, the National Development Plan, to try and improve people's lives and take people out of poverty. But you don't see this happening in actual fact. So we, much as we are independent, so to speak, economically, we're still where we were during apartheid. And this is a fact that has been proven through scientific studies, that we aren't moving. So you have a small black middle class that has joined the elite and promoting the system the way it has always been. And we usually say in my area of work, we are still existing under apartheid. And people who are poor and frustrated even say things that are depressing, like it was better when it was during apartheid because at least we had jobs. And that statement is not only painful, but it makes you see that if our political system is about talking, but not walking the talk, because we are in power now and we know how we got here and we know why we got here. People died for us to be in the democracy that we say we are in now. But this democracy is not lived by all. The majority of people in this country are still where they were before 1994. And obviously on the ground and maybe up there during in the governing structures, people are talking about now implementing the laws and policies that we have in South Africa, because we are said to have the most liberal laws in the world. However true that is, I'm not sure. But I do know some of our laws that they are liberal. And if we can now start implementing what we have put on paper for the past 28 years, because Ankweta, your question really press buttons that one don't enjoy pressing, because the reality is to the contrary to the dream that we had as South Africans when we went to vote in 1994. Today we sit back, we feel like we were sold out. We say all kinds of things simply because we are not, or the governing structures in this country are not making, are not operationalizing the dreams that we had put on paper in 1994. They are still sitting on paper. It's about time that we make them felt by the people on the ground, then we can say as South Africa, we are free. But as we stand, socio-economic power still sits where it sat before 1994. Everything else is a smoke screen. We still are not free. The majority of the people in this country are not economically free. They are still locked in the periphery of the economy. So, and I would speak from South Africa across the continent. We still have to really reflect, introspect, and try to figure out what's best for us as a people instead of what's best for me as Jamela. What can I take into my pocket as Jamela and enrich myself and my family and friends, and start thinking broadly, because we will not be free as long as the majority of people in this country and in this continent are still struggling. We are still governed by foreign powers, but we have this illusion of freedom, which is not experienced by all. South Africa is part of that, and we need to wake up from that illusion.
Well, that was deep again. So I don't even want to comment on that because it's time to take a break. And then when we come back, we'll talk about, we go into the dream and see what is the dream for the future. You know, what can we say is our dream? You're tuned in to Follow Me to Africa Conversations, brought to you by Cliff Note TV in the diaspora. And if you're not yet sign up, make sure that you do that right now, because these conversations, they can change your life forever. They can change your thinking and, above all, your perceptions about Africa. We're talking about homecoming. We are having a full day tomorrow talking about homecoming. We have a bunch of incredible homecomers who will be sharing their stories tomorrow. So you want to make sure that you join us in that conversation. We're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and I'm so looking forward to it. This is just a teaser of what you'll get from that conversation. Before we go into depth about our African dreams, let's just take a short break, and don't go away. We'll be right back, right back.
Clevenard in Diaspora Television is an internet online TV service. What sets us apart is a unique combination of hit African content, first and exclusive international free movies, series, musics, news, events, documentaries, tourism, teleshopping shows, youth TV programs, and live interviews. Clevenard Diaspora Television is available throughout sub-Saharan Africa and to the diaspora markets worldwide. Take your entertainment with you wherever you go. Watch on your smartphone, tablet, laptop, smart TV, depending on your device. Watch free movies with Clevenard Movies Television. Stop searching for free movies websites and watch Clevenard Movies Television. Watch your favorite African shows anywhere at any time. Don't forget to check out our top 5 TV channels created to get you informed. TV1, Clevenard in Diaspora Television. TV2, Clevenard Youth Television. TV3, Clevenard Movies Television. TV4, Clevenard Teleshopping Television. TV5, Clevenard Tourism Television. To start watching, sign up at www.clevenard.com and follow the easy steps. Once you're done, log into the Clevenard website or app on your device, click on any one of our 5 TV channels, and hit play. We will be very satisfied and happy to welcome you to our team as one of our new business partners. Contact info@clevenard.com +34 631 279811. Website www.clevenard.com.
Welcome back to Follow Me to Africa Conversations on Clevenard TV in the diaspora. If you're just tuning in, make sure that you get into the space, because Clevenard TV in the diaspora, clevenard.com, that's the space you want to be to get some of the conversations, going, to get some of the insight that my guest and I were talking about. We're talking about mainstream media manipulating information and misleading us. So when you come to Clevenard, we take you home and we give you that conversation that you should be having we tried to shift your mind to the space where you have that sensibility to filter through information that is manipulating to find the one that is uplifting, empowering, but which is real for the continent that we call home, that is Africa. So I'm back with my guest in South Africa, my sister friend and the queen. She's the queen. Sometimes I call her Mrs. J. Sometimes I call her the queen. Sometimes just my sister. And this just makes the conversation more interesting. So before we went on break, we were talking about where we have been. Now again, we're coming out of the pandemic, and we have more information in our hands today. We're more aware of the manipulation than we were before the pandemic. So, what will you say is your African dream? What should be our collective African dream?
You know, this question is loaded because I could have a whole bucket list of the African dream. But mainly for me, and I take this from Steve Biko's quote, famous quote, which I'm sure you have had, you've come across, especially you, Anquita, being the researcher that you are, that the most potent weapon for the oppressed. No, the most potent weapon of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. I'm sure I've misquoted it, but I hope you get the sense of what I'm going to say. So if colonialism has really done a good job with us to its advantage, it's capturing our minds and dare I say our souls, our spirits. And what the pandemic has done, having us locked in our houses, it wasn't just the physical brick and mortar houses where we were locked up. We were also locked up in ourselves, in our spirits, where we began to interrogate. As we were beginning to interrogate our physical houses, clean up the corners that you never cleaned up before you were locked down. You began to discover your house. You began to discover this house as well. And that for me was the most liberating experience, painful as it was because a lot of lives were lost, but it also opened up our eyes to what is happening out there in the world. Remember the killing of what was his name? George
Floyd.
George Floyd. We knew that in America, every other day or hour or whatever, a black man is killed by the police. But we never witnessed it the way we did during the pandemic because we had that whole time in our houses, observing what's happening out there in the world, beginning to wake up to the reality that we have always denied to acknowledge. Many of us who are optimists, we wanted to think that all is well in the world, things are changing, the world is becoming fair for all of us. But that was a wake-up call to actually admit that there is a lot that still need to be done for us as people in this universe, to be able to coexist with each other without having to fear each other. But now, as we have the past almost over 2 years of the pandemic, what I'm observing, which for me is perhaps collectively leading us to that African dream, is the mere fact that we have, at our fingertips, information that is telling us that actually you are not where you are because you are inferior, you are a savage, you are this, you are that, as history written to make us feel that way, capturing our minds to feel inferior in this planet. We know the whole education that we've been given is a lie. And much as it is difficult to accept, we are comfortable in the denial that our education actually is superior, we are where we should be. No, we are not. We are still measuring our worth through somebody else's standards. We are still measuring, seeing ourselves through other people's eyes. So as Africans, for me, the pandemic put us in a place where we were able, many of us, to reflect and introspect and find our true selves. And that is the road that, for me, says there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is no turning back now. We need to continue opening our eyes. We need to continue, I will use the word, cleansing our minds and our souls, and moving out of that space where we have accepted that we are actually inferior to this one, inferior to that one, and know that we are actually the most powerful people on this planet. And you spoke about information. They do say knowledge is power. But the right knowledge is power, because much of what we call knowledge sometimes is textbook knowledge that was designed to make us think in a certain way. But if you sit down and reflect, you will realize that just by observing nature, you begin to accumulate your own knowledge that relates to who you are. And it's amazing, Anqueta, when you begin to embrace yourself, your psyche, how powerful you feel, how liberated you feel from thinking clearly from your own psyche, not shaped by textbook knowledge that gave you marks in school. So, some of the greatest thinkers in this world will tell you that you do not get wisdom from the textbook. You get wisdom from experience, experiential learning. So as Africans in this 21st century, we've been shown who we are. And mind you, whatever civilization that exists, science is busy digging out and showing us that it was taken from here in this continent, taken somewhere else, repackaged, and brought back to us in a distorted manner by design, to make us feel that we are second-hand citizens of this planet. And that, you and I, Anqueta, knows, comes from fear. The oppressor is consumed by fear. You do not oppress anything or anyone you don't have fear on. So if you look at me and you feel threatened by me, whatever the reason may be, you will take steps to try and block that which you perceive as a threat. So as Black Africans, we are not poor, we are not savaged, we are not violent. If anything, we are known to be a peaceful people, a compassionate people, which has worked to our disadvantage to a certain extent, because we are so welcoming. Sometimes we welcome and trust that which does not have the best interest for us on this planet. And we know that. We know that, but going forward as our African dream, for me, if we reclaim our identities, we reclaim our power, reclaim our who we are as a people, and also unite. Africa will not go anywhere until Africans unite. Countries that call themselves powerful, they come with names like the United this, the United that. If Africa unite, this continent will begin to see light, economically and otherwise. And until we do that and still keep seeing each other as enemies, because that's what we do, especially here in South Africa. Although Again, this is an instigated situation where we are made to reject our own African brothers. Ankweta, you will know that when we get into our xenophobic mode, foreigners are Black Africans. Everyone else we welcome and go down on our knees for them. And that is part of the design. I'll go back a little bit to the story of 1994 when we thought we were entering the rainbow nation. Again, by design, the system has been set. So whether you're black or yellow or brown sitting in government, you still promote the same principles of the system, the capitalist system that is being used to monopolize socioeconomic power and just have your messengers to go and run that system. You don't have to do it yourself. I was watching a video of one of the South African brothers the other day saying, he was being asked a question, why haven't things changed since Black people are in power? And he said something exactly like I'm saying now, which I've been seeing around me for a long time, that the system is set. So we know, you and I, that usually governments across the world are run by business. So those who have economic power sitting up there, you won't see them. You will see those who are actually running the system, running it against their own people. And you think, what are they doing? There are, if you ask me, puppets on the strings, still running the same system that we fought against. And sometimes even they themselves don't see it. Sometimes it's not deliberate. Sometimes it's out of not wanting to rock the boat. In South Africa, we kept saying, oh, we made compromises during the negotiations for democracy because we didn't want war like other countries in Africa where independence was followed by war. And we know how that happened and why it happened, to keep the system running, the colonial system running. We are not unique. We are still on that boat. And until we learn to unite as Africans, trade within our continent, we have so much power. Some people say Africa can feed the whole world, but Africa is the hungriest in the world. Why is that? We really need to put our finger on that.
We'll take that after the break. Why is
Thank
that?
you.
And you've said a whole lot of things. I will suggest we take a quick break. And before that, let's drop another quote from, to complement the quote from Steve Biko. He said, the rest of the world, the rest of the world powers have given the world the Industrial Revolution, but the biggest gift ever is still going to come to Africa, and that will be giving the world the face of humanity. And I think that's why you say Africa will always be here, irrespective of what is happening. We've always been here. But the conversation is so deep that we can go for days. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right here when you come back.
Start your own internet radio station for as low as €6.99 per month. We provide affordable radio streaming and hosting plans for everyone. And there are two main things that make us the best. We are here to make high-performance radio hosting online affordable and to outshine all the others when it comes to hosting plans and broadcasting services. High quality. Stream at any bitrate with our wide range of Icecast and Shoutcast hosting plans. Auto DJ. Easily start broadcasting with our complete automation platform. No software is required. Unlimited. All plans include unlimited listeners and bandwidth, allowing you to broadcast worry-free. Broadcast worry-free with unlimited internet radio hosting. We provide premium streaming services with unbeatable pricing and quality support. Create your own online radio station today. it.clevenard.com. Start your own.
Welcome back to Follow Me to Africa Conversations, brought to you by Cliff North TV in the diaspora. We are in South Africa having an incredible conversation. And if you're just here, I just invite you to go start watching the conversation from the beginning. And also watch other Follow Me to Africa conversations, because each one of them is so unique. It's so unique. And so that you don't have to go back watching conversations, make sure that you sign up on cliffnottv.com so that you always get probably a notification when we are having our conversations, and you can be part of this. So my sister friend Jamela has been sharing what she thinks should be the vision of Africa coming out of the pandemic, what we should do in order to tap into, unleash, own, and drive what is ours, the greatness that Africa is. Now, sister, you and I, we can go on and on, but this space here doesn't give us that space. So we will do a follow up. Right now, the question I want to ask you is, what is it that you will tell those brothers and sisters in the diaspora are still hesitating about coming back to the continent because they are still watching that smoke screen? What is it that you would tell them, having returned back yourself for so many years and not having any regrets?
Okay. I think for me, like I said when I was talking about my own return, is overcome the fear. Because I want to be realistic about this. Like I said, what you see on television or in the media in general can really misplace your thinking and your perception of the continent. And unfortunately, that is what you will keep seeing every day. You will keep believing, you will keep being misguided in terms of your perceptions of the continent. But if you overcome that fear, sometimes you don't even have to overcome the fear. You just have to take the risk insofar as your perceptions are concerned, because it may not be easy. It may not seem realistic for you to overcome the fear. It is scary because you see what you see. Like I said, do your own research about this continent. The information, luckily these days with the technology that we have, is in your fingertips. Secondly, as you try to transcend this fear that we have about the continent, or these doubts that we have, so sometimes if you just plunge in, and I can call myself someone who plunged in, because when I left my country, it was in one form, and when I had to come back, it was in a different form, a form that I was made to believe was even more scarier. So I had to plunge in. You plunge in, you never know until you are here. You live the experience of being here. You feel the atmosphere that you come into when you are here. So at the end of the day, it's not an easy decision, but you really have to speak with yourself and ask yourself whether you are overcoming the fear, and dare I say the perceived fear, because much of the fear is not real. It's just imaginary stuff that is informed by the media. So if you can cross that bridge and find yourself here, you'll have a different experience. And Ankweta, I must repeat, I'm not trying to paint a rosy picture. Nowhere in the world things are perfect, but there's nothing more satisfying than being part of a solution to a problem that we collectively know as a people of the continent, how we got where we are today, and how we can get out of this quagmire that we find ourselves in. And remember now that colonialism or apartheid or any other form of oppression today is not visible. In South Africa, we usually say pre-1994, the enemy was clear. We knew what we were fighting or who we were fighting. But post-1994, the enemy is blurred. The enemy is no longer someone we know who, there's no point of attack, so to speak. And when I say attack, I don't mean physical gunshot attack. I mean in terms of liberating ourselves mentally, because physically on paper we are liberated, but now what is left is liberating ourselves mentally, so that we are able to see clearly and be able to redesign the system, if I can put it that way, in this country and in the continent, so that we move forward seeing through our own eyes and our own minds, instead of living in this bubble, in this comfort zone, where we don't want to rock the boat. We just want the system to keep going. I know I can go on and on and
Yes,
on,
just
so
let's
I need
give
to
me this
stop
one
here.
very short. Give me a short answer to this one. Will you be principally interested to mentor, coach someone who wants to come but who needs guidance?
Oh, definitely. Oh, definitely. And to a certain extent, although it wasn't deliberate, conscious mentoring, there are sisters who have come from the US that I have been friends with, and we've been, sharing experiences and all that. And I can imagine if anyone, a brother, a sister, a mother, whoever wants to come to the continent, and we can mentor each other, I will tell you, because this relationship would be two-way. It wouldn't be a relationship of, oh, I'm African, I was born here, I went to the diaspora, I know this, I know that. It's experiential. Every day you experience something different, you learn lessons and so forth. So I would happily want to connect to anyone who comes from the diaspora and share experiences. And for me, that's what mentoring is. So that it's not something where you say, I will solve your problems or I'll make you fit in. No, this is how I have lived it. See if it works for you.
Thank you, thank you. So we're running out of time, seriously, because the conversation is so good. In my mother tongue, they say when, elderly women smoke pipes. When you see the smoke go out of the pipe, it means the conversation is so good that she forgets to pull, and then the light goes off. And this is the experience here right now. So talking about mentoring, we have a plan for that mentoring for you coming home. So you want to join, make sure that you tune into our conversation on November 5th. That is tomorrow, the homecoming day, African Homecomers Day. But also check on our website, www.followmetoafrica.com. You'll find some interesting information on how we can help you to plan your homecoming journey in a successful way. So, sister, I'm going to wrap this conversation. This is not going to be the last. So, for the purpose of time, I'm just going to ask you start a few sentences and you complete them for me, and we'll wrap it all up in a nutshell. Okay, so before we do that, you have 1 second to throw in any thought if there's something else that you wanted to add before we conclude the conversation. And after that, we do the nutshell. 1 second.
Africa, my Africa, we are great. Let's unearth our greatness.
I like that. So now let's complete the following sentences for me. In 2030, I see Africa
Prospering.
Um, the one thing that people don't know about me is that many people don't know about me is that
I'm very compassionate and optimistic. I always see the light at the end of the tunnel.
and the one thing that I always have in my grocery bag is
Avocado.
I like that. My favorite African meal is
Sorry, say that again.
my favorite African meal is
Oh, Mohodu. Tripe.
okay. It's a South African meal.
It's a South African. It's a traditional dish.
Okay, nice. So the
Yes.
the craziest thing that I ever did, or the funniest thing that I ever did was
The craziest thing that I ever did was to go on those gliding slides in the gorges of the Northwest Mountains. I'll never do it again.
Okay.
You know those slides? You go whoosh like a kilometer in the air between two mountains, and when you look down, is gouges, rocks, sharp rocks. And my children made me do that. It was the craziest. I don't even want to think about it.
Okay, so the next African country I want to visit is,
Mozambique.
okay. If today was my last day, I would, which is not, but if it was, I would.
Oh, I would just take a deep sigh and say, thank you, world. Thank you, universe, for having me here. Now I'm coming back.
With that, she's getting out of this laptop now, in front of this screen now. With that, we'll come to the end of our today's conversation series, Follow Me to Africa conversation series brought to you by CliffNut TV in the diaspora. This is where we bring you Africans who are walking through the journey to share their transformational journeys, their lessons learned, and the juicy part of it, and share how the solutions, so to say. We air twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays. You want to join CliffNotTV.com. So CliffNot TV in the diaspora on cliffnottv.com so that you don't miss out on any conversations. And when you do that, I promise you that I will not stutter at this point anymore. My name is Ankrita Beatrice Achaleke, and I'm inviting you to join us on our Follow Me African Homecomers Day tomorrow on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And up until then, I'll see you on Tuesday with another conversation. And this time, I'm taking you to where I am right now, Sao Tome. On Tuesday, we will be talking about Sao Tome. So thank you very much to my guests. Thank you, CliffNut TV in the diaspora. Thank you to those of you who tune in. Make sure that you don't miss another session. So I'll see you next week. Bye.